On with the show today and the matter in hand. And the first track we are going to kick off with is ad insights. We talked a little bit about the disruptive ads and new ad technologies earlier. So before we kick off, this is brought in association with Admix. We have a message from our sponsor, Run VT, Catherine. And there you've seen a little bit about what they do. It's putting brands advertising into game. It's really cool stuff. And so now you've heard a bit what they do. I've talked a bit about what they've been raising money earlier, and now you're going to hear from the people themselves and the CEO, in fact. So we've got a talk entitled "Real Estate for Game Publishers: How to Monetize Your Virtual World," and it's a superstar session, and it's going to be. Here he is. It's just waiting for him to join. It's going to be delivered to us by the wonderful Mr. Sam Huber, the visionary behind Admix, who is frighteningly young, but he's doing very. How are you, Sam? Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Chris. How are you?
I'm very good. Whereabouts are you in the world?
I am in London, just like yourself.
We're all in London. That's good. No, you've got. It just looks a frighteningly white room. It's like you're kind of from the future. It's like in
a little bit. It's
very good. I'd love to have a room that clean. Anyway, I'm going to step back and let you get on. You've got all your time. Don't worry. I always like to start a bit late, run over. But over you go. Tell us all about real estate for game publishers, and I'll be back at the end to ask questions.
Perfect. Thank you, Chris. Good morning, everyone. Great to have you. I know it's the first talk of the day. Hope you had a good weekend. Thanks for attending. Today, I'd love to talk about a slightly different twist on the concept, which is real estate for game publishers and answering the broader question, how to monetize virtual worlds. So just a little bit about Admix. You might have heard of us before. We are an in-game solution. We started in 2018. And what we've decided to do from the get-go was creating a better solution for publishers and for the end user when it comes to advertising. And instead of having this annoying, intrusive ads that affect the retention of the game, we tried to find a system where the brands are actually natively integrated within the game itself, within the gameplay. And we call that in-play. It's our own twist on in-game. And it's been going really well. We're trying to educate brands to embrace gaming as a new channel. Obviously, gaming's been massively growing, and lately it's been, we've been managing to onboard much bigger publishers. We started with small indie developers. Now we work with the likes of AAA studios like Gameloft and others. Recently, we've announced a big fundraising round, $25 million, which puts our total raise to $37 million. And this will be deployed into the product, creating the best product to help creators, publishers monetize their games in a way that doesn't affect the retention, doesn't affect the game itself, and is really as native as possible. We believe that is the future of monetization. Banners, videos that we can insert in the games. This is really just the beginning. There's a lot more exciting ways to monetize games, and also the metaverse. We started in 2018 by focusing on monetizing VR content, then expanded into games for obvious reasons. But where we really, the core, the DNA of what we do is really about virtual worlds, really about monetizing that. Just yesterday, we launched our first collaboration with a virtual world, Somnium Space. We dropped a set of Billboard NFTs in collaboration with Cloud9, the esports team. That is the first brand partner appearing on those billboards. So this new metaverse, the new mechanics of it, the decentralization really opened exciting opportunities for creators to monetize, the world that they have created. So we have a self-serve platform. We have about 400 games on that platform. Anyone can just go into admixplay.com, sign up, and find our technology there. It's no code. It's really simple, and then connects you with 100 100+ brands who are basically ready to go and can serve content within the games that you connect to it. So that's a little bit about what we do. Today, I wanted to bring a little twist to that discussion. And this is a question that we've started to ask to some of our game publisher partners, people that work with us. And it's purposely something to throw them off a little bit. What is your real estate monetization strategy? Of course, if you're a game publisher on mobile, this is not necessarily metaverse, right? It's all publishers. You probably don't have a real estate monetization strategy. You probably can grasp what I'm going with this. But the idea there is to make people realize, the creators, that, you know, when you're building content, whether it's a city like you see here, or it could be a stadium, or it could be anything, right? You're building content in your game. You can really think of this as real estate. It's a space in the game that has value. But the traditional solutions that you might already be using with your mediation or interstitial or rewarded video, that doesn't really monetize your real estate. It monetizes the interruptions inside in the game. But most of the time that the user play is within this real estate. Again, whether it looks like a city or something else, there is space there. There's 3D or 2D spaces that can be monetized. What about the inside of the gameplay? And this is really the thought process that we had when we started Admix, because we see that most of the time is not spent on the interruptions, it's spent within the game itself. So it's a different mechanics. And that's what Admix is doing. We unlock new revenue stream with this technology, because now you can monetize the inside of the game. So in a way, it's not, you know, competing with traditional models where you monetize interruptions. You can have the interruptions that you monetize with interstitials, and really the inside of the gameplay that you monetize with a different technology. And the way that it works is pretty simple. You keep building your content. Nothing changes when you're actually creating the game. Then with a technology like Admix, you can create those areas, those plots that are basically areas that you want to monetize. This is what our technology does. You identify bits and pieces of the content that become monetizable. And then we have a network of brands or businesses who want exposure through your game. They want to reach the audience that you have one way or another, whether it's to show an ad or sell a product. And this is the brands, the companies that appear within the slots that you have created in the game. So this is why we talk about real estate. And you can see that that concept actually takes it a lot further than pure advertising, because right now, the spaces that you identify, they are replaced by ads. But in the future, it could be something else. It could be a 3D product that you want to sell, or an NFT that you want to showcase, or maybe a transaction that you want to run. So the way we see what we do is goes beyond advertising. It's about real estate. It's about figuring out an area within the content that you've created where a transaction can run. We've started with advertising. Of course, it's an obvious use case, but again, it can go a lot beyond that. You can put anything in this real estate, ads, e-commerce, anything. And the beauty of it is, like, it's not actually an SDK, it's a plugin. There's no code required. You literally bring that into Unity or Unreal, you drag and drop those units, you decide where you want to place it, what you see is what you get type of thing. And then from there, the transaction can run. And the result is this, right? It's inserting brands, inserting messages within the content itself. So if we talk about real estate, let's try to take that analogy a little bit further and see what are the things that really matter to maximize the monetization of the real estate that you have created within the game. So the first one, as every property owner will know, real estate is about location. And what I mean by location here, I mean about the game itself, right? The way that monetization works, whether it's advertising or e-commerce or whatever you want to sell, it's related to the amount of people who see the placement or can engage with it or can buy it. right? So of course, the more popular your game, the more people you'll have to potentially monetize. So it starts with the location. It starts with sending the user to a great destination and helping brands target this audience. So the first thing you can do if you want to maximize your monetization, and again, whether it's our solution or a traditional rewarded video, this doesn't change. The more users you have, the better you start. So that's the first thing, but that's where it starts to differ a little bit. Then we're looking at footfall, which is a commercial real estate metric. And footfall is actually within the game itself. Where do you place the placement so that it gets the best view, so you can maximize the share of the screen and maximize the revenue. And we'll see some examples of that in the further slides. And after that, it's the income. How much are you making from this placement? Again, in real estate, it can be a rate of return if you're selling the building, or it can be a rental income if you're renting it. So this is the same here. How much are you making per placement, and is it actually worth the installation? So if you look at number 2, which is footfall, the beauty of the in-play solution is that you get to decide where you want to place those items. And so, of course, what you're trying to do is to maximize the viewability. When we talk about advertising, the best placements, what brands are looking for is really to be seen in front of users for as long as possible. And ideally in the most straight possible position, so that the area of the ad itself occupies as big as possible in the area of the screen. If your ad was completely 180 degrees, you were passing by, no one would really see that. So this is a great example here, where you can imagine as you're driving, you would literally see the banner for like 5-6 seconds, and then it becomes bigger, and then you get to the next one. So that's a great example where you maximize the footfall passing next to the banner. So now how do we measure that? So we actually have our own algorithms, which it's called a dwell time calculation. We calculate how long this ad actually appears on the screen, and also the area of the ad compared to the area of the screen. And that information is passed back to the advertiser. And that's the metric that we use to quantify viewability. We also have a third-party partner called Integral Ad Science, which is able to measure if this ad is seen by a real person, and also has access to some metrics. But of course, their product is built for the web. We've adapted it to make it work for the 3D world, but it doesn't take everything into account, which is why we also have our own calculation. But nonetheless, we are the only in-play solution on the market to be verified by a third party. And that gives advertisers a lot of confidence that their ad is actually seen by a real person, seen by a certain amount of time, which passes the IAB minimum time in view to guarantee an impression. So that's kind of how you maximize your footfall. Here are some other great examples where you can place the ad unit, kind of tailored in front of the gameplay, so that as the screen gets closer and closer, your ad will become in view more. We have algorithms, we use data to advise the publishers on how to optimize the placement, so that you can maximize the viewability. And the more viewability, the more revenue you'll make, because the advertiser gets better and better performance for the metric that they're trying to optimize, which is the viewability time. So those type of ad units here, you cannot interact with them, which is a great thing actually, because the users are not going to click on them. They have nothing to do. It's just there in the background. So it is really about monetizing the time that those units are in view and the area that they appear on the screen. And how do you do that, you ask? Well, this is a fastened version of how the integration works. We've sped that up, but it doesn't take very long. As you can see, you are in control. The publisher is in control. This is a tool that you can integrate directly with Unity in this case, and you literally just put the unit inside the game, drag and drop, and then you decide where you want to place it, how big you want to place it. The only thing you can't change is the aspect ratio of the unit itself, because we don't want the adverts to be squished or change the aspect ratio. But other than that, it's really a tool that you control. And that's the real beauty of it. When we came up with the idea, I used to run a small game studio before, and I always felt like the ad SDKs were very much plug and play. You know, you have your content, you spend time crafting it, and then you slap a video on top of it. And you just didn't have that many options to decide how this video would look. It's just an overlay on top of the game. So we really wanted to create a developer tool, not just a plug and play solution. So you decide, you craft your experience, you get to integrate in play the way you want to keep your monetization completely player centric. It's all about the player. How do you create the best experience for them? And on top of that, we have extra controls that we're introducing as well in the platform. So you'll be able to now approve every single brand and even creative before it is served inside your content. Until now, we could block categories. So if you didn't want anything related to fast food or sports, you could block that. Now we're going even one level more granular, where you can actually approve the brand and approve the creative if they come directly from our platform. So of course, this is an extra layer of control. So it takes a little bit longer. You need to monitor the brands that are coming in, but you don't have to do that. It's only if you want to maintain complete control, then you can do that. You can create your own rules, and then the system eventually learns and prioritize the brands that you want the most. And also, and that's something I keep reminding our publishers, you know, this is a solution that you can insert in your game. You can create this real estate, but you don't have to rent it at all times. So you could do that if you have a game that is organized around events, for example, right? Where you have specific events, specific things happening at a specific time, then you can just trigger that and monetize this moment, but it doesn't need to be all time. You know, you don't have to rent the room that you own at all times, to keep the real estate analogy. So you can pause it, and then everything would become transparent or would have a fallback texture depending on the settings. So again, it's about complete control. It's not necessarily about you know, establishing in play as a next the next pillar of your monetization strategy. You can definitely do that if you want, but we also find cool integrations that are built around a specific moment, a specific event that is organized in the game, and then turned off and then turn on again at a later date, and then keep it on for 6 months, turn it off if you want. This is the beauty of this solution, is that it is truly native to your environment, and therefore you can do whatever you want with it. So the next step was about income. How do you actually monetize? How do you make money from this placement? But that is truly down to us, right? We have access to premium brands that we are getting excited about gaming as a whole. The likes of Disney, McDonald's, Uber, Calvin Klein, Sky. I mean, we run, you know, hundreds and hundreds of campaigns over the past couple of years. Some larger case studies like this. We have Movember starting lately. So, you know, the idea there is we have a team that goes out to brands and to agencies, and basically we're showing them the great content that you have built, the great games, and we're exciting the brands also about this real estate. The pitch that we have is very similar to out of home. You know, we're showing them great location in a digital world, but it's still a great location. And if you have a million users passing by this virtual BMX track, for example, you know, it's equally as valuable as putting an ad in Piccadilly Circus these days, because people spend more time interacting digitally than they spend in the physical world, or at least a segment of users do. So that's the pitch. It's about the location. It's about how great this space is going to be for their brand. And of course, all the added value, because we can track what happens. We can see how long people look at specific ads, and that becomes part of their media mix. So that's kind of how we are approaching brands, and more brands are leaning in. They're very excited about the world of gaming. They're very excited about the metaverse as well, which is the next phase of games. So, you know, that's just growing and growing. And so it's a perfect time if you're a publisher to start getting brands inside your content, inside your real estate, because more than ever, brands are trying to reach the audience that you have. Whatever they're selling, whatever they're promoting, they know that everyone is playing games one way or another, right? 2 billion people are playing games every single day on mobile. So it's not really about the game anymore. It's about the audience behind it. And so if you have that audience, it's extremely valuable. The audience is what brings utility to your real estate, right? Building a great building in the middle of the desert where no one's there is not as valuable as having, somewhere a great location. And that comes back to the first point. It's about the location. Then you maximize the footfall in that location. And that is what brings income, because brands are interested to place their ads and their product within this space. So what I wanted to talk about now is just what are the ways that we have to actually monetize it, because we're introducing new business models for our creators. The first way was what we call now sell as you go, which is, you have a revenue share with us, where you get most of the revenue, 70% in most cases. And basically you make money when advertisers are buying. So you plug on the platform and then you see how much revenue is. It generally takes a couple of days to ramp up because we have a very scalable network. We're not an agency. We plug into various networks like the Google network or Verizon and others. So we have a steady stream of demand. You're not just waiting for sales team to sell. And that's what publishers really like about our solution, is that it's consistent growth revenue. The more users you have, the more revenue you get. It's very predictable, very easy to follow. And that's the current model. It's sell as you go. When we have advertisers, which is all the time, but the more advertisers we have, it fluctuates a little bit based on the demand. At the end of the quarter, you have more demand because the budgets are closing. And so you make more money this way. So that's one way. Another way that we're introducing as well is sell as a service. We've built this great platform for advertisers to basically come on our platform and create great campaigns, target the games that they want to target, and so on. And now we're going to make this available to our publishers as well. So a lot of our bigger publishers, they have their own brands, they have their own relationship, they have their own sponsors. And so they were asking us, why can't we use your platform to deliver on the relationship that we have already? Because a lot of times those brands, they have the brands, they have the game, but the technology to insert it might be a bit clunky, or it's just not as good as what we have, because we've spent 3 years and millions of dollars developing the best in-play technology. So the service model is something that we are getting started now. Feel free to reach out if you're interested. If you have brands interested, we can become just the technology partner, and the revenue share on this is very advantageous. And the other one is something that we'll be announcing soon. So an exciting new way to monetize the real estate that you have. So just to wrap up, this is an example of a studio showing that they managed to integrate in really about 10 minutes, which is a record. Normally you can count a couple of hours, maybe a day of work, depending on the complexity of the content. But the idea really is that you get to create a seamless experience, which is really, really important, because the more time you have your users in the content, the better, the more footfall you can get. And by not interrupting the session time, by not interrupting retention, with this type of model, you get to maximize the time that your users are in the game, and you get to integrate that really, really quickly. And then you can drive great ARPDAU increase, LTV increase. These are just some examples of studios that have worked with us, and they have great big real estates, and because of that can generate significant increase from the traditional solutions. This is a study that we've done with one of our publisher, Neon Play. That was at the beginning of the year, I believe. And it shows that we've tried to have 0 ad placement, 5 ad placement, 10 ad placement, and we measured retention in day 1, day 7, day 28. And as you can see, there's no difference. So this is the proof that, and we've replicated this test many times, but this is the proof that because the placement, the real estate is truly integrated with your game, you do not affect the retention of your users. They're not interrupted. You don't create those triggers for them to leave the game. And that's the real beauty of it, because it enables you to monetize without compromise. You have tons of buildings, you have big real estate, or you put 5 placements, Well, if you want to double that, you can put 10 placements. This is not going to affect, as long as you're reasonable, of course. It needs to look great. As long as you're reasonable, this will not affect your retention. I think that's one of the most exciting thing, because it completely shifts the way that you can think about monetization, where you're normally always trying to compromise between number of ads per user per day, your retention. You know that by increasing one, you're lowering the other. This is not the case here, because we're not talking about intrusive advertising. We're talking about monetizing your real estate. So to close off, what are the key takeaways? Well, it's really interesting to me to think about real estate. If you're building content, again, it doesn't need to be anything, in the metaverse. It can be just a mobile game where you're building an environment which is real estate, and that is valuable. And the technology that we had available until now just didn't really teach us to think this way. But if you think this way, it just opens up a lot of possibilities. And in play, our solution, this is really how you monetize digital real estate inside games. It's not an SDK. It's a simple plugin, plug and play, drag and drop. You decide how this experience look. Doesn't affect the retention. You keep complete control, and you get to create an alternative revenue stream for your game. So thank you guys for listening. I would love to answer any question if you have.
Right. No, there is a number of questions, and we'll try and segue them into sort of 2 or 3, because there's sort of similar areas. I just firstly want to say that every time I sort of hear the presentation about in play, it just seems like a total no-brainer to me, because like, why would you not do it? I don't know. Maybe you probably haven't got an answer to that. It would be a bad thing to have in a deck. But it's not impacting your other advertising, right? It's not stopping you doing performance-based advertising.
Not at all. No. It's completely. This is why I'm talking about it as something different. Almost, it's a it's a different type of monetization, and you can definitely.
Impact, yeah. And it's like just advertising like you get in display in the real world. It's not. Why would you not do that? Like people create mock ads to make their experiences feel like a real world environment. Like why? I just don't understand why you. I mean, I don't know how many people are doing it, but it just seems to me such a complete.
It's massively growing, and yeah, absolutely, people are getting used to the concept of it. And as we improve the technology, we give them more control. It is really becoming a no-brainer. Absolutely.
No, I like the real estate analogy. That's a good one. I think it's good to keep coming at this in different approaches. There's a number of different kind of questions here. Some of you might have answered. There's a question here about brands and non-gaming brands. I think you kind of answered that, but I think it's quite a key thing, because often what I think we see with mobile advertising, mobile sort of performance advertising, I guess, is that it's often other mobile brands, right? Yeah. For the mobile games, and the whole games right now, as I said in my intro, is hot. It's new black. People are desperate to be part of this, and it seems like this is a probably easier integration for them. This is more like the advertising they understand elsewhere. So it seems like this is the gateway to brands. Is that how you sort of see it?
Yeah, 100%. I think the interstitials and rewarded video. The reason why 95% of that are other games is because the formats were just not great for brands, right? It's great if you want to drive a direct click, if you want to drive, impulse download, perfect. But for a brand that is selling a product, you're not going to sell a pair of sneakers while interrupting someone playing a game. So it's not about the conversion. It's about the awareness. It's about driving consideration for a product. And we're running studies now to prove that this consideration is higher, because the message, integrated in the game, first of all, it's very visible. It's visible for a lot longer than if you had a banner on an article that you're scrolling down. And because you're focused on the game, your brain is fired up and therefore registered the message better than you would do when you're just lazily browsing social media, for example. So it's a perfect place for brands to really nail the top funnel, which is the awareness. And we know that in a world where Facebook and Google control a lot of the last click attribution, the battle is in the top funnel. You need to, people are going to buy anyway, especially in Q4 when you're getting close to Thanksgiving and Christmas. How do you make sure they buy your product? Well, they need to see it more than others.
All awareness, right? Well, I mean, it didn't hurt Coke, right? They've done quite well with it. So there's a couple of questions about mechanics. I think you've kind of answered a bit, but I'll quickly throw them out. in terms of the key ways of measuring, I mean, again, people are focused on measurement all the time. I know this is more brand advertising, but what sort of data do you get? You probably mentioned it, and I was kind of collating questions, not listening to every bit of it. So this is a question, is it just kind of you monitoring kind of the views? I mean, obviously there's not kind of clicks in the same way. So what is it? Is it just purely views?
Yeah.
Do you get any of the data?
Well, we look at, in terms of the performance itself, we look at dwell time, which is the amount of time that the ad was seen on the screen, the area on the screen as well. We use a gaze, which is kind of a refined metric for that, focused attention. We compile the two. But in terms of targeting, the beauty of our solution, it's true, I haven't mentioned that, is that we're not looking at personal data. We believe that the data, the contextual data of the game is actually enough to be able to do great targeting. It's not about who you are in the real world and what you've bought on Amazon. It's about the actions that you're actually taking in the game, the type of games that you play, and who you are in your digital form. So that's how we are, really looking at our data and the unique targeting that we can offer the brands.
Okay, there's a couple of questions I want to get to. I'm not going to get through all of them, but one's just popped in from Alexi Rantanen. He said he uses Admix on mobile titles. There you go, got existing client. But would be great to hear how it performs in VR on Oculus Quest specifically. You said you came from, I think, VR initially, the tech, is that right? Or maybe I made that up. I thought I heard that. So presumably it works in VR, right?
So yeah, I mean, the technology works everywhere. We've built it to be cross-platform. I mean, it's integrated with the game engine, so it is meant to be everywhere. We have focused on mobile commercially just because we wanted to dominate that category. Yeah. VR is an interesting one. So on Oculus at the moment, Facebook does not allow any third-party ad SDKs yet. We are in discussion with them, but this is not something that we recommend doing at the moment. It works on the other platforms at the moment, although we had some publishers that decided to go live anyway on Oculus. It's really up to them. Technically, it's not something that we recommend doing. So while it definitely works technically, it's a matter of us, working with them to enable our technology on their platform.
Okie dokie. There's a couple of questions here about kind of scale, about eCPMs and how big the market can be. Obviously, it is still comparatively new. So is there any data out there to suggest how big this in-play market is or how big it's going to become? Do you have if people want that information, is that exist?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the way I like to, I think, bottom up is looking at what is the attention, what are the eyeballs, right? And the big stat that we like throwing around is that there are the same amount of people playing games that are on social media every day, right? The eyeballs are roughly the same. If you aggregate all types of games and you aggregate social media, it's roughly the same amount of attention. But the budgets, the money that brands puts in social media is 50 times or 70 times more than gaming. So there's a big discrepancy here between the amount of eyeballs, the attention that is there, your customers, and the willingness that brands have to reach them. And we believe that the only reason why the discrepancy exists is because the technology just didn't exist until now. Because brands always try to reach their audience, right? They've done that across every single channel.
I think there's probably a bit of a hesitancy I think as maybe some of the bigger brands were a bit of hesitancy with games for a while. I think there's been a long time games has been seen as this kind of subculture that it just wasn't
for a while. But I mean, look at the
now,
luxury fashion now getting violent games, and they're leading that thing is gone. Now brands are totally embracing it. Yeah.
Well, there's loads more questions here, but I'm gonna have to move on. But if you want to pour through any of those in the Q&A box and answer any, feel free to. If not, I'm sure people can find you through the meeting system or in Discord or elsewhere. But yes, thank you so much for that. Sounds really great, and yeah, I wish you the best. It's very, very exciting. I want to talk about the metaverse, but not now. Another time.